There's a strange freedom in stopping to give a damn, not the cold indifference of someone who's given up on life, but the conscious detachment of someone who finally understood that not everything deserves a piece of your soul. You weren't born to carry the weight of other people's expectations. You didn't come here to be applauded by people who can't even applaud their own existence. And yet you live as if your peace depends on everyone's approval. As if every judgmental gaze were a sentence, as if your value floated in the uncertain wind of other people's opinions. The spiritual truth no one tells you is this: the path to freedom begins when you learn the sacred art of not giving a fuck. And this doesn't make you cold. This makes you free. You wake up, and you're already worried about what they'll think, about the clothes you wear, the car you drive or don't drive, the career you chose, the body you inhabit, the relationship that ended, the opinion you expressed last night, and so piece by piece you distribute your life force to audiences that aren't even paying attention, because the hard reality is that most people are too busy worrying about themselves to actually care about you. They project for 3 seconds, judge for 5, and move on while you stay there, ruminating, revisiting, mentally rewriting that conversation, that moment, that awkward silence. You've become a prisoner of ghosts, of imaginary versions of yourself that you think you should be, of expectations that aren't even yours, but that you inherited from family, from society, from social media, from that friend who seems to have it all figured out. And in the middle of all this, your true essence is suffocated, waiting for permission to breathe, waiting for the world to say it's okay for you to be who you are. But that permission never comes, because it should never come from outside. It was always yours to grant. What spiritual masters from all traditions have tried to teach you is simple, but devastatingly difficult to apply. You cannot control the river of other people's opinions. You can only decide whether you're going to drown in it or stand on the shore, watching the waters pass by. Buddha spoke of detachment, the Stoics about internal control, Jung about individuation, the process of becoming who you really are, not what others want you to be. And every single one of them arrived at the same conclusion: your energy is the most sacred currency you possess, and you've been spending it on people who wouldn't even notice if you stopped. Think about it. Really think about it. That person whose opinion keeps you up at night, do they lose sleep over you? That judgment you fear, is it even real, or is it a story you've constructed in your mind? That need for validation, where did it come from? And why are you still feeding it? The answers to these questions will disturb you, because they'll reveal how much of your life you've lived for an invisible audience that does not exist. The universe doesn't measure your worth by likes, by titles, by the size of your house, or the impressiveness of your resume. The universe measures you by the authenticity of your frequency, and when you're busy performing, pretending, people-pleasing, your frequency becomes distorted. It becomes a lie. And you can feel it, can't you? That heaviness, that exhaustion, that sense that you're wearing a mask that's slowly suffocating you. Here's what happens when you start not giving a fuck in the spiritual sense. Your energy returns to you. Imagine every worry, every need for approval, every fear of judgment as a thread of light extending from your core to someone else. You're connected to hundreds of these threads, and they're draining you constantly. When you begin to cut them one by one, something miraculous happens. The light returns. Your power returns. You start to feel like yourself again, maybe for the first time in years. But let's be clear about what this means. Not giving a fuck doesn't mean becoming an asshole. It doesn't mean trampling over people's feelings or abandoning compassion. It doesn't mean isolation or bitterness. The spiritual art of not giving a fuck is about discernment. It's about knowing what deserves your energy and what doesn't. It's about understanding that you can be kind without being a doormat, that you can care without carrying, that you can love without losing yourself. The Bhagavad Gita teaches about detachment from the fruits of action. You do what's right, what's aligned, what's true to you, and you release the outcome. You release the need for applause, for recognition, for validation, because those things are just noise. They're the static between you and your purpose, and when you learn to tune them out, suddenly you can hear the signal, your intuition, your inner guidance, the voice that's been trying to reach you your whole life but couldn't get through the crowd. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his Meditations, "It never ceases to amaze me. We all love ourselves more than other people, but care more about their opinion than our own." If this message resonates with you, subscribe to the channel and join a community of awakened souls walking the same journey of spiritual alignment. Think about that. You love yourself, supposedly, and yet you give strangers, acquaintances, even enemies more power over your emotional state than you give yourself. That's not just ironic, that's tragic, and it's the default setting for most of humanity. The programming runs deep. From childhood, you were taught to obey, to please, to conform. Gold stars for good behavior, punishment for stepping out of line, love that felt conditional, dependent on your performance. And so, you learned that your value wasn't inherent, it was earned. It was something you had to constantly prove. And that belief, that poisonous belief, has been running your life ever since. But here's the thing about programming. It can be rewritten, not easily, not overnight, but systematically, consciously, deliberately. Every time you catch yourself about to sacrifice your truth for someone's comfort, you have a choice. Every time you feel that familiar anxiety about being judged, you can pause and ask, is this real or is this a pattern? Every time you're about to dim your light to make someone else feel less threatened, you can choose differently. The shift begins with radical honesty. Look at your life right now. How much of it is truly yours? How many decisions did you make because you wanted to versus because you thought you should? How many dreams did you abandon because someone said they were impractical? How many parts of yourself did you hide because they weren't acceptable to the crowd? This inventory will hurt because you'll realize how much of your life you've outsourced to other people's preferences. But this pain is necessary. It's the pain of waking up. And once you're awake, you can't go back to sleep. You can't unknow what you now know, that you've been living in a cage of your own making and the door was never locked. You just believed it was because everyone around you believed it was. But belief isn't truth, and the truth is you're free. You've always been free, you just forgot. Not giving a fuck spiritually means reclaiming your sovereignty. It means understanding that you are the authority in your own life. Not your parents, not your friends, not society, not the algorithm, not the voices in your head that sound like you but aren't you. The awareness behind all the noise, the consciousness that's been watching this whole drama unfold, that's who you really are. And that awareness doesn't need approval, it doesn't need validation, it simply is. When you start living from this place, everything changes. Your relationships change because you're no longer tolerating things that violate your boundaries. Your work changes because you're no longer chasing external markers of success. Your entire energy changes because you're no longer leaking it in 1,000 different directions. You become solid, grounded, present, and people notice. Some of them won't like it. They'll miss the version of you that was easier to manipulate, easier to guilt, easier to control. Let them miss it. That version of you was an illusion anyway. To celebrate your arrival, we've prepared a gift, a guide to help you navigate your inner transitions with clarity and elegance. Alignment. 7 Phases of Consciousness Awakening. Download your copy from the link in the description. Others will be inspired. They'll see your freedom and want it for themselves. They'll ask how you did it, and you'll tell them the truth. You stopped asking permission. You stopped performing. You stopped caring about things that don't matter and started caring deeply about the things that do. You learned to distinguish between the voice of your soul and the voice of conditioning, and you chose to follow the former even when it was terrifying. Because it is terrifying at first. The ego thrives on approval. It builds its entire identity on being accepted, being liked, being right. So when you start not giving a fuck, the ego panics. It throws up every fear, every worst-case scenario, every reason why you should care what they think. It tells you that you'll end up alone, rejected, unloved, and maybe for a while some people will fall away. The ones who were only there for the performance. The ones who benefited from your people-pleasing, the ones who preferred you small. But here's what the ego doesn't tell you. The people who matter, the ones who truly see you, they'll stay. They'll actually respect you more, because authenticity is magnetic. It gives others permission to be real too, and the connections you form from this place of wholeness are deeper, richer, more alive than anything you experienced while wearing the mask. The spiritual path isn't about becoming something you're not. It's about unbecoming everything you're not. It's a process of subtraction, not addition. You don't need to add more techniques, more practices, more beliefs. You need to remove the layers of conditioning, the false identities, the borrowed dreams, the internalized judgments. And beneath all that, you'll find what was always there, your true self. Wild, free, unapologetic, whole. Not giving a fuck is an act of self-love. It's saying to yourself, you matter, your peace matters, your truth matters, your energy matters, and I'm not going to let anyone, including myself, violate that anymore. It's drawing a line in the sand and meaning it. It's honoring your boundaries without apology. It's choosing yourself, not in a selfish way, but in a self-full way. Because you can't pour from an empty cup. You can't give what you don't have. And if you're constantly depleting yourself for others, there's nothing left for your own journey. The Buddha sat under the Bodhi tree and vowed not to move until he found enlightenment. Demons came, temptations came, doubts came, and he stayed. Not through force, but through unwavering commitment to his own truth. He didn't care what the demons thought. He didn't care about the voices telling him to give up, to go back, to be reasonable. He stayed. And when he finally opened his eyes, he was free. That's the power of not giving a fuck about anything except your own awakening. Jesus overturned tables in the temple. He challenged the authorities. He associated with outcasts. He lived his truth so fully that it threatened the entire system. And when they crucified him for it, he didn't recant. He didn't apologize. He didn't perform for their approval. He embodied love, not as compliance, but as fierce, unwavering authenticity. That's the kind of not giving a fuck that changes the world. You're not here to be comfortable. You're not here to be liked. You're not here to make everyone around you feel better about their choices by dimming your light. You're here to burn, to shine, to express the unique frequency that is you. And some people will love it. Some people will hate it. And most people won't even notice because they're too busy with their own drama. And all of that is okay. None of it has anything to do with you. Your job is simple. Be yourself, fully, completely, without apology. Speak your truth, even if your voice shakes. Make choices that align with your values, even if they confuse others. Walk away from what doesn't serve you, even if it looks good on paper. Say no without explanation. Say yes without guilt. Live like someone who knows that this life is temporary and precious and not to be wasted on other people's scripts. And here's the beautiful paradox. When you stop trying to please everyone, you actually become more helpful to the world. Because you're no longer scattered. Your energy isn't fragmented across 1,000 meaningless concerns. It's focused, concentrated, powerful. And from that place of integrity, you can actually make a difference. Not because you're trying to, but because you're being yourself so fully that you can't help but impact others. The mystics knew this. They went into the desert, into caves, into silence. Not to escape the world, but to find themselves, to strip away everything that wasn't essential, to stop giving a fuck about the noise so they could hear the signal. And when they emerged, they were different, transformed, free. Not because they learned some secret technique, but because they remembered what they'd forgotten. They were already whole, already enough, already divine. You have that same divinity within you, but you can't access it while you're busy performing, pretending, people-pleasing. You have to get quiet. You have to get honest. You have to get ruthless about protecting your energy. And that means learning to not give a fuck about a lot of things you currently think matter. Does it matter that your ex moved on? No. Does it matter that your family doesn't understand your choices? No. Does it matter that someone unfollowed you or talked behind your back or judged your path? No. None of it matters. Because none of it changes who you are. Your worth isn't up for debate. It's not dependent on external validation. It's inherent, absolute, unchanging. When you really get this, not just intellectually but in your bones, everything shifts. You walk differently, you speak differently, you make decisions differently, because you're no longer trying to control how you're perceived. You're just living authentically, messily, beautifully, imperfectly. And that's when life gets interesting. That's when synchronicities happen. That's when the right people show up. That's when opportunities align. Not because you're forcing anything, but because you're finally flowing with your truth instead of against it. The universe responds to authenticity. It doesn't reward masks. It doesn't open doors for performances. It aligns with what's real. And when you stop giving a fuck about the superficial and start caring deeply about the essential, your frequency changes. You become a magnet for what's meant for you and a repellent for what's not. And that's exactly how it should be. So let them talk, let them judge, let them misunderstand. It's not your job to manage their perceptions. It's not your responsibility to make them comfortable with your evolution. Your only job is to keep walking your path, keep honoring your truth, keep choosing yourself, and trust that everyone who's meant to be with you will understand. Everyone else was just a lesson. Not giving a fuck is the ultimate spiritual rebellion. It's refusing to be controlled by fear. It's dismantling the ego's need for approval. It's living from the soul instead of the wounded inner child. It's growing up spiritually and taking full responsibility for your life, your choices, your energy. And yes, it's uncomfortable. Yes, it's confronting. Yes, people will have opinions about it, but none of that matters more than your freedom. If this resonated, don't like and subscribe for the algorithm. Do it for yourself. Do it as a commitment to your own liberation. Because every time you choose truth over approval, you're voting for a version of yourself that's free. And the more you vote that way, the more that version becomes who you are. Not someday, not when you're ready, now. Today, in this moment, you're free to not give a fuck. You're free to be yourself. You're free to live. So what are you waiting for? The Cipher of Inner Stillness is a poetic journey through the hidden geometry of peace. Blending mystical philosophy, Jungian psychology, and cosmic symbolism, this ebook reveals that silence is not the absence of life. It is its source. Discover this and other codices that transform the way you see the universe through the link in the description.